It started like any other Tuesday. The sun was slipping behind the rooftops in Los Angeles, casting a warm golden glow over everything. Alfre Woodard was on her porch, sipping tea, finally enjoying a bit of quiet after a long day. Her phone buzzed on the armrest beside her, a number she didn't recognize. She almost let it go to voicemail. You know how those calls usually go? Robocalls, wrong numbers, bad news. But something told her to pick up. She answered with a simple, "Hello." The voice on the other end had a gentle accent, full of warmth and sincerity. "Good evening, Ms. Woodard. My name is Ibrahim Traoré. I'm calling from Burkina Faso." She blinked. The Ibrahim Traoré, the young president known across the world for his bold leadership and quiet strength. Before she could make sense of it, he said, "I hope I'm not intruding. Just needed to speak with you." She sat up, her heart thudding. "Course," she said softly. There was a short pause, and then he spoke again, this time slower, more personal. "I didn't go through any assistance to make this call. This isn't official, it's just something I've been holding on to for a long time." She could hear the emotion in his voice, the kind that sits in your chest when words matter more than anything. "I grew up watching you," he said, "and not just your performances, but how you carried yourself. Strong, proud, unapologetically you." Tears began to sting her eyes. "There were nights," he went on, "when I was just a boy. No food in the house, my father gone, my mother overwhelmed. And I'd see your face on a tiny TV screen in a neighbor's home. You gave me hope when I didn't have anything else." Alfre gripped the phone tightly, speechless. "I was 12 when my father died," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I thought my life was over. And then I saw you, standing tall in a world that didn't always want to see us. And I thought, she can be seen maybe one day, so can I." By now, Alfre was openly crying. She didn't care who saw. "You didn't just inspire me," he said. "You helped me survive." There was a silence between them then, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Two souls, strangers until a moment ago, connected across continents by something deeper than words. She finally whispered, "Thank you for telling me. Sometimes you never know who's watching. And sometimes the smallest light you shine reaches someone who needs it more than you'll ever know." The words clung to her like warmth after a long winter. All those years. The auditions, the long shoots, the roles that came and went, the time she gave everything and got almost nothing back. And now, out of nowhere, here was this man, this world leader, telling her that her work, her voice, had mattered. She didn't know what to say. Her throat tightened. I don't have words," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't need any," Ibrahim replied, his tone gentle, almost fatherly despite his youth. "I just needed you to know. Kindness doesn't always arrive with fanfare, but it stays. It changes lives." Alfre clutched the phone like it was an anchor in a storm. She was crying now, not from pain, but from the staggering weight of being seen, really seen, after a lifetime of walking uphill. And she could tell he wasn't done. The silence stretched between them, full but comfortable. Then his voice returned, quieter than before. "There's something I've never said, out loud, not to my advisors, not even to my family." Alfre leaned in instinctively. She could feel the shift in him, the vulnerability, the ache. "When I took office, everyone told me I had to be strong," he said, "unshakable, like stone. But every night when the world felt too heavy, I would hear your voice in my head." She frowned softly. "My voice." He gave a light laugh. "You probably don't remember the line. It was from a film you did years ago. You looked a boy in the eye and said, 'We are more than what they say we are. More than even we believe.'" That line had buried itself deep in his soul. "When no one believed in me," he said, "I repeated it like a prayer. I held on to it, and somehow it held on to me." Alfre's hand flew to her mouth. She could barely breathe. To think something she'd said on a soundstage decades ago had wrapped itself around the heart of a young boy and helped him become a man who would one day carry a nation. Ibrahim, all she could say. "Don't cry just yet," he said with a tender chuckle. "It's more I've wanted to tell you." He paused, then continued, his voice thick with memory. "I grew up in a village where the ground was hot and our feet were bare. No running water, no electricity. My mother couldn't read, but every night she'd gather us around the radio and we'd listen to stories. And once in a while, we'd hear your name, your voice, and we knew, somewhere out there, there was a woman who looked like us, being seen, being heard." Alfre's tears fell freely now, her soul wide open. "I didn't know," she said softly. "I never knew anyone was listening." "We were," Ibrahim answered. "We all were. Children you'll never meet. Growing up in places you've never been, but watching, hoping, because you dared to shine when the world told you to shrink." Her heart felt full and aching all at once. She pressed her palm to her chest, grounding herself in the moment. "You have no idea what this means to me," she whispered. "I do," he said gently. "That's why I made this call. Because kindness, real kindness, the kind that lives in who you are, it doesn't disappear. It plants things, even in the places no one sees." Another quiet stretch passed, not awkward, just still, sacred. Then Ibrahim spoke again, this time hesitating. "There's one last thing," he said, "something I've carried for a very long time." Alfre's heart skipped. "I was 16 when I wrote you a letter. I never sent it. I didn't think you'd see it, or that it would matter." Her breath caught in her throat. "But I kept it," he said, "all these years, folded and worn, in my wallet, through everything. It's because even if you never read it, I needed to believe you were real." Alfre gasped, hand trembling. A letter. A boy, future president who once thought he was invisible, holding on to her as proof that dreams weren't just for other people. "You wrote to me?" she asked, her voice barely audible, thick with disbelief. "I did," he said. A boy in worn sandals from a dusty village no one had heard of wrote to a woman who made him believe there could be more. "I never mailed it, but I've kept it. The paper's soft now, creased 100 times. It's my reminder of what hope looks like." The tears were falling freely now, slipping down Alfre's cheeks. "I wish I could have read it back then," she whispered. "You're reading it now," he replied tenderly. "You're hearing it in my voice. You're seeing me, the man I became, because of what you gave without even knowing it." Alfre closed her eyes, her heart aching in a way that was both painful and beautiful. For so long she'd poured herself into her work, unsure if any of it truly reached anyone. But this moment, its call, was proof. The line went quiet again. It wasn't awkward, just heavy, full of everything words can't carry. Then, softly, Ibrahim said something that made her breath catch. "There was one night I nearly gave up." Her whole body went still. "What happened?" she asked gently. He drew in a breath, slow and shaky. "It was the night after my brother died. Violence had torn through our village. There was barely any food. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. I walked out to this tree where I used to go to think. I sat down and decided. That was it. It was done. No one would notice if I disappeared." Alfre gasped quietly, her hand covering her mouth. But just as I started to close my eyes, a boy from down the road came running up. He had half a piece of stale bread. He handed it to me and said, "You can't go yet." "You're our big." Brother Ibrahim's voice trembled. "That boy saved my life without knowing it. And in that moment, I understood something I'd never forget. Even when you think no one sees you, someone does. Someone's watching, learning, hoping, just like I watched you." A long silence followed, not because there was nothing left to say, but because the truth had landed so deeply, it needed space to breathe. Alfre whispered, "You're breaking my heart, Ibrahim." He let out a soft, sad laugh. I don't mean to. I need you to understand. Then his voice shifted, not louder, but steadier, fuller. There's one more thing I want to share. Something that means more to me than any title I've ever held. Alfre sat up, bracing herself. When my mother died, he said, she left me her scarf. It's just a thin piece of fabric, but I swear it carries her warmth. She told me, when the world makes you forget who you are, hold this. Let it remind you. He paused. So whenever I feel lost, I reach for it. And I think of her, and of you. Alfre closed her eyes, picturing a boy wrapped in loss and fear, holding a piece of his mother. Holding on to her and somehow holding on to her too. I never knew I mattered like this, she whispered. You did, Ibrahim said softly. You still do. It's more than you could ever know. And even though they were half a world apart, Alfre could feel it, like she was sitting beside him under that tree in Burkina Faso. The heat of the day still clinging to the earth, the pain of loss heavy in the air, and yet something sacred passing between them, the kind of connection that doesn't need to be explained, only felt. After a while, Alfre spoke again, her voice almost afraid to break the spell. Why now? She asked. Why tell me this today, Ibrahim's? Tone changed, firmer, more grounded. Because when I became president, he said, I made myself a promise. I told myself before I leave this earth, I'll thank every soul who helped build me, even the ones I never met, especially the ones who never knew what they gave. And then, after a long silence, you were the first name on that list. His voice was quiet but steady. You were the first name on my list, he said. It's the first person who ever made me believe in myself. Even if you didn't know it, Alfre's tears came harder now, no longer soft or silent. Her free hand covered her face as if trying to hold herself together. I don't know what to say, she whispered, overwhelmed. You don't need to say anything, Ibrahim replied gently. You just need to know this. You changed the life of a hungry little boy in Burkina Faso. And now that boy is trying to change the lives of millions. His words didn't land like compliments. They landed like truth, sacred and heavy, like something ancient finally being spoken aloud. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. For the first time in years, maybe decades, Alfre didn't just feel appreciated, she felt seen. Like her life, her work, her voice had echoed farther than she ever imagined. That night, sleep refused to come. Her mind raced, heart full. But before they said goodbye on that first call, Ibrahim had one simple request. If you have a moment tomorrow, he said, I'd like to show you something. Alfre hesitated, but I'm in Los Angeles. I know, he replied with a small smile in his voice. I'll send a video link. I just want you to see what I see every day. The next morning, she opened her email and clicked the link. No fancy editing, no music, just raw footage. It started at sunrise, soft, golden light spilling across a dusty street. Children barefoot in school uniforms ran toward him, laughing, calling his name. He crouched to greet them one by one. Then the scene shifted. He was visiting a marketplace, chatting with widows selling vegetables under a tarp. He helped a boy fix a broken water pump with his own hands. Later, he sat at the bedside of a sick girl, holding her hand as she smiled shyly up at him. No guards, no stage press. Just one man walking, listening, present. When the video ended, Alfre was sobbing again. But this time, it wasn't grief. It was awe. He didn't lead from a podium. He walked among them. He carried their sorrow like it belonged to him. And somehow, through it all, he kept smiling. That afternoon, her phone rang again. It was Ibrahim, but this time, he didn't speak right. Away, hello? Alfre asked Ibrahim, are you there? A pause. Yeah, I'm here, he finally said, his voice low. Is everything okay? She asked, concern blooming in her chest. He let out a breath that was half sigh, half confession. I just needed to hear your voice again, he said. Today was hard. A mother buried her son this morning. I told her it would be okay, but the truth is, I don't know if it will be. Her heart cracked. You don't have to have all the answers, she said, voice like a soft hand on his shoulder. He gave a short, sad laugh. I try to be strong for them. But sometimes I wonder if I'm enough. There was a beat of silence. Then Alfre said firmly, if you weren't enough, those kids wouldn't run to you. That mother wouldn't have trusted you with her grief. They see something in you. You carry hope, Kay, and hope is always enough. He didn't answer right away, but she could hear it, his breathing a little steadier, a little lighter. And in that silence, Alfre realized something she hadn't before. Even the strongest ones, the ones who carry nations, need someone to believe in them. Just before they ended the call, Ibrahim spoke again, his voice softer. There's one more thing I want to share. She smiled through her tears. Kay, I'm sending you a photo. It's from a long time ago, but it'll help you understand me better. When Alfre opened her inbox, she wasn't sure what to expect. But what she saw made her gasp. It was a photograph, faded and worn. A small boy stood barefoot in a wide, dusty field. His clothes hung in tatters. His face was streaked with dirt, but his eyes told a different story. They burned with something fierce. Not anger, not fear, but determination. That's me, Ibrahim said gently, still on the line. Alfre couldn't speak. She covered her mouth with her hand as tears streamed down her face. I see him every time I look in the mirror, he continued, and I remind myself, I can't fail that boy. I can't fail my mother or you or anyone who ever saw something in me when I was still learning to see it myself. Alfre let out a quiet sob, not of grief, but of being moved beyond words. You've never let anyone down, she whispered. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. This wasn't just a phone call anymore. It was something sacred, a connection that had traveled across years, across oceans, across pain. That evening, long after their call had ended, Alfre sat alone on her porch. The phone still rested in her lap, screen dark, but her thoughts burned bright. She couldn't stop thinking about the boy in that photo. No shoes, no comfort, no promises, but a spark in his eyes that refused to go out. Then her phone buzzed again, a text from Ibrahim. It was a picture of his hand, palm facing up. A jagged scar ran across it, deep and old. Beneath the image he had written, "This is the price I paid for believing too soon, but I'd pay it again." Alfre's chest tightened. Her heart ached just looking at it. When they spoke again, she finally asked, "How did you get that?" "Scar." He paused for a moment, then exhaled slowly. "I was 15, he said. I saw a soldier beating an old man in the market. I stepped in, told him to stop. His voice dropped lower. He called me a foolish boy. Then he cut. My hand with his bayonet said it was a warning. A lesson." Alfre closed her eyes, fighting back more tears. "But I didn't stop standing that day," he said. "That was the day I decided if I was going to live, I would live with courage." There was a quiet kind of strength in his voice now. Not pride, something deeper, something earned. And now, he added, a tremor breaking through. "When I visit children and they ask about the scar, I tell them it means I didn't give up. And neither should they." It was late in Los Angeles, stars blinking above the city. But Ibrahim's voice still reached her, clear through the crackle of distance. "Can I ask you something?" I said softly. "Anything," Alfre replied. "Would you?" "Pray with me, just for a moment." Alfre's throat caught. She didn't expect that. But something inside her cracked wide open. "Yes," she whispered. "Of course." And so 2 souls, one in a quiet room in West Africa, the other beneath the sky in Los Angeles, bowed their heads together. He began in his native tongue, the words soft and melodic. She couldn't understand them, but she felt them, like music humming through the soul. Then he switched to English. Thank you for the mothers who taught us to hope, for the voices that told us we matter, for the strangers who became family when we needed it most. Alfre's tears returned, not with sadness, but with something closer to grace. Thank you, she added quietly, for reminding us that kindness is never wasted, and that we are all connected even when we feel alone. Neither of them spoke after that. There was no need. In the silence, they felt it, something deeper than words. A bond not bound by time or place or even understanding. It wasn't just a moment. It was a miracle. And on the 6th day of this unexpected journey, a connection born from nothing more than a phone call, Ibrahim reached out again. This time it was late. The hour when most of the world has gone quiet and the heart speaks loudest. His voice came through the receiver, low and tired, but unmistakably sincere. His voice was quiet, almost trembling. "There's something I've never told anyone," Ibrahim said. Alfre sat up in bed, heart racing, the phone pressed tightly to her ear. "When I first stepped forward to lead," he continued, "they said I was too young, too idealistic, that I didn't belong. They mocked me, laughed at me, said I was dreaming." He paused, and she could feel the weight of what came next. But what they didn't know was that every time I wanted to quit, every time I questioned myself, I thought of you. Her breath caught. "Why me?" she whispered, almost afraid to ask. "Because you showed me that someone who looks like me, someone the world tries to ignore, could still rise, could still stand tall, could still matter." He paused again, this time to steady himself. "And I made myself a promise. If I ever got the chance, I'd thank you." Alfre's eyes filled again. She had heard many things in her life. Applause, praise, even silence, but never something this pure. "Your strength," he said softly, "it saved me long before I ever knew your name." And in that sacred moment, Alfre understood something she'd never put into words before. Sometimes the greatest thing we can offer the world is simply living our truth. The next morning, a small package arrived at her door. No return address, just her name, carefully handwritten. Inside, wrapped in soft cloth, was an envelope, old, worn, delicate. She opened it slowly. The handwriting inside was uneven but full of heart. "Dear Ms. Woodard, I am just a boy in Burkina Faso, but I saw you in a movie and it gave me hope. They say someone like me can't dream, but you made me believe I can. One day I will tell you this in person. Until then, thank you for being my light." Ibrahim, her hands trembled as she held the letter to her chest, tears falling onto the paper. It was real. The letter he'd written as a boy, the one he had carried in his wallet all these years, had finally found its way home. It was proof that kindness doesn't die. Proof that a single moment, a single performance, a single act can echo across oceans and decades. That evening, her phone rang one last time. "Did you get it?" Ibrahim asked, his voice soft, steady. "Yes," Alfre whispered, emotion flooding her voice. "Then now you finally know," he said warmly, "what you meant to me, what you still mean. You planted a seed without knowing it. And because of that seed, millions now have hope, including me." Alfre smiled through her tears. "You've already become more than I ever dreamed of being," she said quietly. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt it fully, completely seen, valued, remembered. Not for fame, not for glory, but for truth. And though they said goodbye shortly after, neither of them felt alone, because kindness, real kindness, doesn't end with one act. It lives on in stories, in scars, in children's laughter, and in the hearts it dares to touch. Dear friends, this story moved you? If it reminded you that our words and actions can shape someone else's world, I hope you'll take a moment to reflect. Leave a comment, share a memory, say thank you to someone you've never thanked. You never know who needs to hear your voice today. Because Just like Alfre and Ibrahim, you might be the light someone's been waiting for. Thanks for being here. And thank you for believing in the power of kindness.